Megyn Kelly has weighed in on Meghan Markle's failed plan.
We've got to talk about Meghan Markle.
I remember when she was born, big new addition to the family, and we just have a very young sister here.
She's absolutely ruthless.
Is Meghan Markle really 44 or maybe even older?
There's nothing original here.
I hope you're having the best birthday you've ever had. Thank you for everything.
Which is really such a fake.
And that single jab ripped open a rumor so explosive it refuses to die.
When she was younger,
Hi, Nanny. I got an English award.
100% a bully brat.
Because when it comes to Meghan, nothing ever seems to add up.
That was her goal, #goal, to marry Prince Harry.
Her timeline feels like a Hollywood script with missing pages, rewritten scenes, and more edits than a Netflix reality show.
For the longest time, she wanted to be a dancer.
Think about it. The woman who preaches authenticity seems to be hiding from the one thing no royal title can cover up, her actual age.
Meghan Markle's not an idiot.
I just made a little mark on my board and said, oh, there's another lie, click.
Yeah, she very clear idea of where she wanted her path to take her.
Meghan Markle has nothing.
Someday Meghan's going to realize that she's obviously missing out.
I think when I was 30, if I thought about 50, I thought that is an awful long way away. And I don't really need to think about it. And then I blinked and I'm 50. That's crazy.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer.
Here's the latest happening everyone's talking about. Megyn Kelly has put a spotlight on Meghan Markle's age in a way that no one else has dared. And while Meghan's defenders dismiss it as nitpicking, the reason this question matters is because it exposes a pattern, a trail of edited documents, polished photos, and timelines that don't always align. Start with the basics. Meghan's official birth year is 1981. That makes her 44 today. But rumors going back years suggest she could be several years older, with dates like 1977 or even 1975 floating around in alumni chatter. At first glance, it sounds like typical Hollywood age shaving, the kind actresses have done for decades. But here's where it's different. Meghan didn't remain just an actress. She became a duchess, and royalty is supposed to exist on a paper trail that never changes. Yet the paper trail has changed. The most public example came in 2019 with Archie's birth certificate, when Meghan's names were erased after filing. The palace brushed it off, but the edit raised eyebrows. Add to that the fact that her old photos, from Northwestern's Salsa club to high school portraits, seem to resurface not randomly but strategically, often coinciding with moments of criticism. Critics call it curation. Supporters call it protection. Either way, it's not organic. And that's why Kelly's viral line resonated. Because when she asked if Meghan was really 44 or 50, it wasn't just about a number. It was about trust. The same trust the monarchy is built on, the same trust Meghan used to launch her brand of authenticity. This is the fresh update. As Meghan faces renewed courtroom battles with Samantha Markle, the age controversy has slipped into headlines alongside legal disputes, turning what once felt like background noise into a full-blown credibility crisis. When Megyn Kelly looked directly at the camera and asked if Meghan Markle was really 44 or closer to 50, it was more than a provocative soundbite. It was the kind of blunt question that ignites an entire news cycle, because it cut straight to something critics and fans had argued about in whispers for years. Within hours, the clip was clipped, stitched, and shared across TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube. And the reaction was split in two very familiar directions.
So before she met Harry, you had no doubt she was your sister.
My little sister, though, I said.
Defenders who dismissed it as cruel gossip, and skeptics who called it overdue accountability. The reason Kelly's words spread so quickly is because they touched on credibility, not just curiosity. Hollywood has always lived with rumors of adjusted ages. Stars from Marilyn Monroe to Sandra Bullock dealt with speculation about their timelines. But Meghan isn't just an actress anymore, she's a duchess. And in the royal world, documents and dates aren't casual details. They're treated as historical record. That's why the question hit with such force. If one of those records can be questioned, what does that mean for the rest? What followed was a wave of amateur investigations. Fans pulled out Northwestern University photos from the early 2000s, pointing out that many of Meghan's classmates are now in their early 50s. On Reddit, users cross-referenced alumni directories, noting how consistently Meghan appears alongside the same cohort. On TikTok, creators looped Kelly's challenge over side-by-side photos, building viral montages that made the debate feel less like speculation and more like a puzzle waiting to be solved. And then came the headlines. Gossip blogs repackaged it first, but soon mainstream outlets began running their own explainers. Is Meghan's age really a mystery? Old photos raise new questions. The speculation snowballed into a wider narrative, and by the time Samantha Markle's lawsuit reappeared in court calendars, the age debate was no longer background noise. It had become part of Meghan's credibility itself, because what Kelly did wasn't introduce a rumor, she mainstreamed it. And once that door opened, the conversation wasn't just about Meghan's birth year anymore. It was about whether her story, as presented for years, could still hold under the kind of scrutiny that never goes away. The first crack in Meghan's carefully presented timeline comes not from tabloids, but from her own photo history. One of the most discussed images is a Northwestern University Salsa Club photo from the early 2000s. At first glance, it's nothing unusual. Meghan smiling with classmates, just another slice of campus life. But fast forward 2 decades, and those same classmates are now confirmed to be in their early 50s.
Get out. Uncle, make it end. Make it end. What is this? Guys, I feel like I'm a very accepting person. Truly, I want to like something about her. I'm searching for something to like about her.
If Meghan is truly 44 today, it means she was a freshman surrounded almost entirely by peers nearly a decade older. Possible, yes. Common, number. That's where the doubts begin to harden. Alumni directories and reunion rosters consistently tie Meghan to the same group of names now aligned with the mid-1970s birth years. Every time those classmates gather today, the contrast grows sharper. Meghan presented as a generation younger, yet repeatedly placed in the same paper trail as those older peers. To critics, it doesn't look like coincidence anymore. It looks like narrative management. Even outside Northwestern, the visual record raises eyebrows. Most public figures of Meghan's generation have a flood of random snapshots, awkward high school candids, prom photos, blurry graduation day scans uploaded by old friends. Meghan's archive feels curated instead. Her high school headshot looks like it was prepared for a magazine spread. Her group photos resurfaced not on social media, but in carefully timed royal biographies and press interviews. Fans on Reddit point out how these images always seem to reappear right when her background comes under renewed scrutiny, almost as if the timing is part of the strategy. This pattern, polished photos, curated nostalgia, and missing candids, has only fed the suspicion. Online detectives argue that if Meghan's history is as straightforward as her official record claims, why does her photo trail feel so carefully controlled? Why does every resurfaced picture arrive with the weight of narrative management instead of the randomness of real life? And this is where the story moves beyond simple gossip. Because once images start contradicting documents, people stop treating it as rumor. They start treating it as evidence. And with Meghan, those side-by-side comparisons are now fueling one of the biggest credibility questions of her career. On paper, Meghan Markle's life story seems airtight. Her biography, royal archives, and countless magazine profiles all repeat the same date, August 4th, 1981. It's etched into everything from official registries to media timelines, a number so often cited it feels untouchable. But beneath that polished version of events, whispers have circulated for decades, and they're not fading. The alternative dates most often cited are 1977 and 1975. If true, Meghan wouldn't be 44 today. She'd be pushing 48, 49, even 50. That 4 to 6 year discrepancy may sound small, but in the timeline of her life, it changes everything. If she was born in 1977, her late teens would have fallen in the mid-1990s, not the early 2000s. Her Northwestern years shift, her early acting credits land in a different bracket, even her first marriage is recast in a new light. It's not just a few years shaved off, it's an entire sequence of experiences that no longer match the story we've been told. And that's where critics seize the argument. In Hollywood, shaving a few years off is almost expected. Casting directors have admitted that age is a currency. Being 32 on paper keeps you in the room for roles you'd never get if you were 40. So if Meghan adjusted her age early in her career, industry insiders might see it as strategy, not scandal. But here's the problem. She didn't stay an actress. She entered royalty, where records are supposed to be beyond question. Birth certificates, marriage documents, family registries. These aren't supposed to bend under narrative pressure. Yet Kelly's viral question has reminded people that even in the royal system, those records can shift. And once doubt creeps in about something as basic as a birth year, the ripple effect touches everything else. It's not about whether Meghan is really 44 or 50. It's about whether the official story of her life has gaps wide enough to cast doubt on the image she built around authenticity. This is why the whispers won't die down. Because in the world of monarchy, even the smallest inconsistency doesn't just raise eyebrows. It raises constitutional questions. If you think royal documents are set in stone, Meghan Markle's story already proved otherwise. The best example came in May 2019, when the birth certificate of her first child, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, was filed in the United Kingdom. At first, it looked routine. Rachel Meghan, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, clean, official, permanent, but just weeks later, the record was quietly altered. Meghan's given names, Rachel Meghan, were erased, leaving only the stripped-down styling, Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. The palace framed it as simple housekeeping, a move to align with the way other royal mothers' records were listed. But insiders at the time described the adjustment as baffling. Why change it weeks after filing? Why not apply the same edit to Kate Middleton or Princess Diana's records? For critics, this became Exhibit A. If a royal birth certificate could be rewritten, even after being filed, then the assumption that royal paperwork is untouchable no longer held. The change may have been small. A name removed here, a title adjusted there. But the symbolism was massive. It showed that what should be permanent can, under certain circumstances, be quietly amended. That's why Kelly's question about Meghan's age landed with such impact. Because once you've seen one royal record altered, it's easier to imagine that other documents, from school rosters to alumni listings, even a birth year, might not be immune to adjustments. And for skeptics already suspicious of Meghan's carefully managed public image, Archie's birth certificate became a warning sign. If this can change, what else might have shifted without explanation? The palace likely intended it as a bureaucratic correction, nothing more. But in the age of viral timelines and internet detectives, small edits don't disappear. They become fuel for speculation, evidence in the court of public opinion. And with Meghan, it fed directly into a growing narrative that her story wasn't just curated, it could be rewritten. Most celebrities leave behind a trail of messy, unpolished snapshots, the kind of random photos that float around forever. High school prom nights, awkward yearbook scans, grainy graduation day candids. They're the kind of images that resurface on Facebook or in old alumni newsletters, reminding people of the ordinary moments that shaped them. But when it comes to Meghan Markle, the archive looks very different. Her school photos, for example, don't look like they came from a casual yearbook. Her Immaculate Heart High School senior headshot is polished, professional, almost magazine-ready. Her Northwestern pictures, like the well-circulated Salsa Club group photo, aren't resurfacing in random uploads. They show up at carefully timed intervals, often tied to royal biographies, press interviews, or documentary features. It feels less like an organic flood of memories and more like a curated feed. Fans on Reddit and TikTok have been quick to point out the timing. Each time Meghan faced renewed scrutiny, in whether over her acting career, her royal exit, or her interviews, new old photos suddenly appeared in circulation. To supporters, this is smart media strategy, controlling the narrative by releasing images that reinforce the version of her story she wants remembered. To critics, it looks like management, a selective drip feed designed to fill in gaps while keeping inconvenient candids buried. And it's the absence that speaks the loudest. Where are the casual party photos, the unpolished snapshots that almost every millennial has scattered across old MySpace accounts or forgotten Facebook albums? Meghan's past feels more polished than most, and that absence only adds to the suspicion. This is why the age debate latched onto her photo history so easily. Because when ordinary candids are missing, curated images begin to feel like evidence, hand-picked pieces of a timeline that may not line up as neatly as her official biography suggests. In the court of public opinion, those missing gaps mattered just as much as the photos we do see. Once Megyn Kelly's question went viral, the internet did what it always does. It began digging. TikTok creators stitched her blunt line with side-by-side photos of Meghan and her Northwestern classmates, looping timelines and captions that raised more questions than answers. Reddit threads became sprawling investigations, where users tracked down alumni directories, reunion rosters, and even scanned yearbooks to compare ages. The age theory stopped being a whisper and transformed into a community project. YouTube channels joined in, producing long breakdowns of Meghan's timeline, laying out official dates against the rumors of 1977 or 1975. What began as gossip migrated into polished content, amplified by algorithm-friendly headlines like Meghan's real age revealed or the photo that changes everything. Each video added more fuel, reaching audiences far beyond the original gossip circles. Mainstream outlets eventually picked it up, framing it less as conspiracy and more as a debate. Headlines softened the claim with lines like, "Insiders question Meghan's birth year," or "Old photos revive age speculation." But once the story reached those pages, the credibility debate grew harder to dismiss. What had started as TikTok montages and Reddit sleuthing now had the weight of media coverage behind it. The timing made it all the more explosive. Just as Samantha Markle's defamation case returned to court calendars, Meghan's age became a trending subject across social media and news platforms. That overlap meant her credibility wasn't just being discussed online, it was being tested in real time in the legal arena. And this is where the controversy crossed over into something bigger. It wasn't about whether Meghan is 44 or 50 anymore. It became about how her story, her documents, and even her photos were being scrutinized with the kind of intensity usually reserved for institutions, not individuals. The internet detectives had turned a rumor into a movement, and once it gained traction, it became nearly impossible to separate gossip from investigation. By early 2025, the speculation about Meghan Markle's age wasn't just living on TikTok and Reddit threads, it was colliding with real legal battles. When Samantha Markle revived her defamation lawsuit, Meghan's credibility became the centerpiece of the case, and suddenly, the age debate wasn't background chatter anymore. It was being folded into courtroom coverage, mentioned in the same breath as sworn testimony. For Meghan, this created what commentators called a double bind. To defend herself against Samantha, she needed to stand firmly on the reliability of her own words and her public story. But every time she leaned on the theme of my truth, critics countered with the math of her timeline, pointing out the 4, 5, even 6 years of discrepancy that conspiracy theorists claimed existed. The courtroom wasn't just about family drama anymore. It became a platform where doubts about her biography echoed louder than ever. Media outlets seized the moment. Articles covering the lawsuit often slipped in references to the age speculation, linking Meghan's defense directly to the broader narrative of trust. Headlines like, "Sisters at War." But credibility is the real issue made it clear. The trial wasn't just Samantha versus Meghan. It was Meghan versus her own public record. The irony wasn't lost on commentators. Meghan has spent years branding herself around honesty, authenticity, and speaking her truth. But now, tabloid montages and late-night jokes contrasted those very words with Megyn Kelly's viral question. One comedian quipped, "The eighth wonder of the world, Meghan Markle's birth certificate. It changes every time you look at it." For Meghan's team, the stakes couldn't be higher. A court fight is one thing. A credibility crisis that bleeds into every headline is another. Because in the public's mind, the lawsuit and the age rumor fused into one narrative. A duchess under fire, struggling not just with her sister's accusations, but with a growing cloud of doubt about whether her story can withstand scrutiny. As the debate spread, the public quickly split into two camps. On one side were Meghan's supporters, who dismissed the age speculation as cruel nitpicking. They argued that women in the spotlight have always faced harsher scrutiny about aging than men, pointing to examples like Jennifer Lopez and Halle Berry, both accused of hiding their real ages at different points in their careers, yet still thriving. To them, the obsession said more about society's fixation on women in time than about Meghan herself. On the other side were her critics, who framed it as a question of truth, not vanity. They insisted this wasn't about beauty or ageism, but about credibility. If Meghan's birth year could be doubted, what else about her story might be flexible? Online, hashtags told the story of the divide. Hashtag Meghan truth from defenders, hashtag Markle math from detractors, each side using the same facts to argue opposite conclusions. Social media made the split even sharper. Supporters flooded Twitter and Instagram with posts calling the scrutiny sexist. Skeptics kept sharing side-by-side timelines, pointing to every document and photo inconsistency they could find. In the end, the argument wasn't really about numbers. It was about trust. And trust, once fractured, is hard to repair. In Hollywood, shaving a few years off your age has always been seen as strategy. But in royalty, dates and documents aren't just trivia, they're history. That's why Meghan's alleged age gap has been treated as more than a personal rumor. It's been framed as a credibility test for both her and the institution she married into. When Archie's birth certificate was altered, it showed that even royal paperwork isn't always permanent. That single edit became symbolic. If names could be removed, what else could shift? For royal watchers, the age controversy exposed how vulnerable the monarchy's image can be in the age of internet detectives who never stop digging. For Meghan, the cost is even more personal. Every resurfaced photo, every alumni listing, every recycled headline becomes another crack in the polished image she's built. And when your brand is based on authenticity, a single contradiction can shake everything. Maybe Meghan really is 44, exactly as her biography claims. Maybe she's older. At this point, the truth matters less than the perception, and perception is what drives reputation. Megyn Kelly's viral question didn't just fuel gossip, it mainstreamed doubt. And in a world where every edit, every gap, every contradiction becomes permanent online, that doubt doesn't fade. Because if one question about Meghan Markle can shake confidence in her story, the real suspense is this: what happens when the next contradiction surfaces?